answer. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Interrupted debate on the third reading of the Taxation, Residential Land Withholding Tax, GST on online services and student loans bill.
Does some member wish to take a call? Mika Whaitiri.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. I ngā mimo te wharenei, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take a call on the third and final reading of the Taxation Residential Land Withholding Tax GST on online services and student loans bill. Sir, just so that we can recap, the purpose of the bill is to make amendments to the Student Loan Scheme Act 2011, the Income Tax Act 2007, the Goods and Services Tax Act 1985 and the Tax Administration Act 1994. So there's three components of this bill that I'd like to just touch briefly on my contribution. The first one is the student loan information, where the bill intends to allow information on student loan borrowers living in Australia to be shared between Inland Revenue and the Australian Taxation Office, ensuring defaulters pay the outstanding loan balances. The provisions in the bill, sir, once incorporated into the law of both countries, are intended to give IRD up-to-date contact details to track down defaulters. So the provisions also under this part of the bill include streamlining the rules applying to borrowers who work overseas but are entitled to interest-free loans because they work for approved charitable organisations, and standardising the treatment of over-deductions from a borrower's salary of wages. Sir, in the committee stage of this bill, colleague Stuart Nash made some very good points in this particular part of the bill, ensuring, sir, that timeliness of registration was critical, that for our students that are living overseas, the clock needs to be shortened so we're not paying undue interest when registered charities are being accepted. So he made some very good points in that, and I do hope that that's been picked up finally in the bill. The other part, sir, was he talked about the level of disclosure, particularly around the charities. And I guess the point that my colleague was trying to make, given that tax avoidance, tax havens, terms that are being bandied around New Zealand. But his point, sir, was to ensure that disclosure, the level of disclosure for our charities, are consistent with other tax laws, and I do support him on that point, sir. Moving to the other part of this bill, it highlights your property investment rule changes. The bill provides for a new withholding tax on sales of residential property by people who live overseas and go on to sell the property within 2 years of purchase. The proposed residential land withholding tax is intended to act as a collection mechanism to the Bright Line test, which applies to gains from the sale of residential property purchased on or after the 1st of October 2015 and sold within 2 years. This test, sir, has been introduced by the Taxation Bright Line Test for Residential Land Act 2015. The tax, sir, will apply when the property being sold is located in New Zealand and defined as residential land under the Bright Line tax provision, and when the seller acquired the property on or after the 1st of October 2015 and owns the property for less than 2 years before selling it. The other part is the seller is an offshore person, and in the bill, sir, it defines what is classified as an offshore person. It's a person or people who are not New Zealand citizens, people who do not hold residential class visas, and New Zealand citizens and residence class visa holders who have been away from New Zealand for a significant period of time, 3 years in the case of New Zealand citizens. Sir, we support this bill to the House, but unfortunately I want to say it's a lost opportunity. It's a glass half full. It may not be perfect, but it is a start, which is something we seem to hear constantly from that side of the House. We should have addressed those relationships of students that are living in UK, for example, and of course course, the GST that we didn't cover in terms of assisting small businesses. So, sir, it is a bill that we support, but like many of the legislation that side of the House brings, it doesn't address the real heart of helping small businesses, and it's my pleasure to say that we support the bill nonetheless in its third and final reading. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jamie Lee Ross.